Hey everyone, welcome back to Extreme IE. I am so excited to be here with you and be recording this video. I've been thinking about doing this for about a week and a half, so I'm so happy that I finally had a chance to just sit down and do it for you. And that's because I think learning scripting in any language, whether that's Python or whether that's, batch scripting or, PowerShell scripting, I don't care what it is, it's so important that you learn some kind of scripting. So I'm so excited to not only be able to record this video for you, but I'm excited for those of you that are watching it because, again, learning how to automate some of your repetitive tasks and learning how to save yourself some time and effort by taking everything that you're trying to do, that may take up 2 hours of your day, making it into a script and then being able to save yourself all of that time. It's incredibly powerful, not just in your day-to-day duties, but for you as an individual to be able to go to any organization, partner, whatever, and say, hey, I can automate this and make everybody's lives easier. It's just an amazing thing. Now, that being said, if you want to pause this video and go over to the networking with Linux video, we're basically going to automate everything we were doing in that video. So what the idea here is that we are Linux admins. We're setting up, 100, 1,000 Linux servers or desktops, whatever it is that we're doing in Linux. And the tasks that we have are network related. So we want to be able to see the output of our existing network interfaces. We want to make sure that we have no errors or anything like that. Maybe we're troubleshooting. And then we want to basically be able to create an automated script to say, hey, we want to create an IP address, subnet mask, gateway, all that kind of stuff, and automatically configure our primary network interface. So we're going to automate all of our networking tasks within Linux. But again, please remember that this is a basic bash scripting video, right? This is not an in-depth video where we're going to examine every single variable, every single command. There's books on this stuff because bash is incredibly powerful with a lot of stuff. So let's just jump right into it. So I'm going to go over to my UI. By the way, I've already gone through a lot of how to navigate this, so I'm not gonna do a lot of that in this video. Let's take a look at our network interface. So you can see here that you can see right now we already have an IP address of 10.99.9.25. ENS 192 is our primary interface, and then IPv4, you can see that this is a DHCP address. We're doing DHCP reservations. We're going to change that over to a manual address, and then we'll come back here because ultimately when we do this, we're going to kick ourselves off the network. We're going to kill our terminal session. So we'll go back into the UI to see what we've done. So let's make sure that we're awake here. Let's go ahead and clear the screen. The first thing that I want to do in my script is I need to actually create one, right? So whenever we go and when we create a bash script, it's pretty easy. We just need a text editor. This is just like a PowerShell script or a batch script, even old VB scripts that we used to run in Windows back in the day. All you need is Notepad in Windows. You just create a list of the commands that you want to run. Yeah, there's different variables again and switches and things like that you can use, but you're just entering the commands you want to run. You're saving it as that particular file, and then you're running it from anywhere you want. It's the same thing here. So it doesn't matter what text editor you use. You want to use VI, you want to use Nano, you want to use the other 30 text editors that are out there, whatever makes you happy. Now for me, I like opening the file. I like creating it right off the bat. I don't like going into a blank file and then saving it later. I just like creating the file that I'm going to use right off the bat. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to tell our interpreter what language to use. And in order to do that, we're going to start our script with a shebang. I know that you're like, a what? A shebang. One of the things I love about Linux is just these off-the-wall terms and names that they give things. It cracks. Even now, it makes me crack up. But this is called a shebang, right? You're gonna do a number symbol, which is Shift-3, followed by an exclamation point, which is Shift-1 on your keyboard. And for us, because we're writing a bash file, we're gonna do /. That's where the top of the slash points forward, and we're gonna do bin bash. Pretty simple. Now, the first command that I'm going to run here is called echo, and this command, what this is going to do is this is going to display, it's going to write on the screen. It's almost like the print command. What it's going to do is it's going to display whatever I have in quotes here. So I'm going to say list current, or I'm going to say list network interfaces. By the way, I'm making some of this up as we go. I have some notes on things that I definitely want to cover for you, but some of this we're going to make up as we go. Now, after I list the current interfaces, the next thing I want to do is I want to actually type a command that's going to cause my network interface output to come up. So I'm going to say IP link show. All I want to do is show the existing IP link. So I'm going to say Control X. That's going to ask me if I want to save the file. I'm going to say yes. It's going to say, do you want to write this file? I'm going to say enter. Now, before we actually look at the script, I want to type in this command, ip-link show. This is essentially what our script is going to do. And part of you might be saying right now, well, if I can just type that one command, why would I want a script doing it? Yeah, you're right. Generally, I wouldn't create a bash script to just do one single command. The idea is that we're going to run 4 or 5 commands. We want all of that output displayed before we ultimately make a decision on whether we're going to configure our network interface or not. And then we're going to go ahead and automate that portion as well. So there's going to be multiple things we run. Now, if I do a list here and I look at the files, you're going to notice PuTTY and all these different terminal editors are pretty cool in that they use colors. So really right now, the color that I'm used to is green when this is an executable file or a bash script. And here it's white, meaning it's just a regular file. It's just regular text. The problem is most likely the permissions. So if I come in here, and you can already see that I've escalated my privilege. In fact, let me just do that again just to make sure. So we're escalated. If I try to run this file, it's going to tell me I don't have permissions. So permission denied. That's because we need to change the permissions to an executable file. So I'm going to say change-mod, which is just chmod plus X for executable, and then I'm going to type the file that I want to essentially change. If I do a list again, you're going to notice that now the file is green. So just by simple colors, you can identify what's what within Linux. Just another thing that's pretty cool. So we're going to say .network.sh. All we're going to do is run this file. And look, you have the same exact output, right? So it matches. The only thing is here, you can see where we've said list network interfaces. Now, this is great. This is a great start. I want to clean this up a little bit. So I'm just going to up arrow a few times until I get back to my nano command. Where are we? Those are some of the update commands. Got to be somewhere. Well, we'll just type it again, I guess. So we'll say nano. Oh, that was in the other privilege escalation. Yeah, anyway, ignore me. So what I want to do, in fact, let me exit out again. What you'll notice is that right after I entered the command, we said list networking interfaces. I want to put some spaces between here. I want to put some spaces between the title and the actual command. So let's go do that. Now, all I have to do is type in a few echoes. So I'm going to say echo, echo, list networking interfaces, echo, echo. So each time I enter echo with nothing afterward, all that's doing is giving me a blank space. So now when we do this, this is going to give us some spacing in between. So now what I want to do is I want to do the next command. I'm going to do nmcli, and I'm going to do device status. What this should do, Control X, we're going to say yes to save the file. We're going to say enter. What this should do now is this should give me not only the list of networking interfaces, but also give me the status of those interfaces. So here we have our loopback ENS192. You can see again the MAC address, but here I'm actually also seeing that the type is Ethernet versus loopback. They are connected, and I'm seeing that connection identity right here. Now there's another command that I also want to look at, and that's a little bit longer of a command that gives us the ID of our particular interface. And what I'm going to do is right underneath this nmcli, and I'm going to say connection show. Now I'm not adding another echo here because I kind of like the way that this is going to be displayed. So you'll see what I mean. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. So here what I'm saying is, okay, I want you to list the existing interfaces. Give me some output here. I want to just be able to see the MAC address, things like that. Here you're going to just show me the devices that are connected, and then here I want this particular one because I'm going to get the UUID of this particular interface in case I need this for anything. So again, we're just looking at output right now. This is equivalent of, okay, we're trying to do some discovery. Whether we're going to configure this or not, we haven't decided yet. We're doing some discovery, but the idea is that if I have to do this on 100 different servers, I don't want to have to continually enter these commands. I'm going to put all these commands into my script, put that script somewhere on a file server, and then all I'm going to do is from my, or put it on the thumb drive, whatever I'm going to do, and then from the terminal, I'm just going to type the one command to run that bash script and be done. So let's go back in this bash script. There's one other thing that I want to look at. You'll notice that I don't see any IP address information here. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create some comment statements. So we're going to say list all active network interfaces. This is just good scripting etiquette, and what I mean by that is, as you start adding more things to your scripts, you want to be able to show or be able to tell somebody exactly what that section does. They might be able to read it and understand it, but in case they don't, you want to be able to label what that does. So list current IP configuration. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to simply list the existing IP configuration. So we're going to echo again, and we're going to do another echo, and that's because we have this command up here that doesn't have any spaces, so we're going to add 2 more spaces. And then we're going to say echo, and we're going to say list active IP. Oh, well, let's make it capital. Let's make it consistent. List active IP configuration. Okay, so now this is going to get listed, so we'll say echo again. Got to learn how to spell, dude. Echo. Okay, now we're going to actually do if config. This is where we're going to actually see what that configuration is. So again, Control X, yes, and let's enter in our script again. Okay, cool. So now we're getting somewhere. Right now we're cooking with fire. So list of our current active network interfaces. So we see that they're up. We see that we see their connection status, and then we come down here and we can actually see their IP address configuration. So again, here we're able to see as we're deciding whether or not we want to configure this or not, we can see whether or not it's something, whether or not it's already configured or not, that it get its DHCP address, what has it done. The last thing I want to do is I actually want to take a look at the routing table. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come down all the way to the bottom. We'll say echo, and I'm going to say IPR for IP route. So we'll say X. Control X, yes, we'll save it. And then we're going to just take a look one last time. So now we have all the output information that we need. Everything is ready and primed for us to make a decision on whether we want to configure this networking interface, automatically, right? So, we again, just right now, you could just keep adding to this script the different commands that you want to add in order to do some networking troubleshooting. You could add ping to this. You could add a trace route. You could add whatever you want to add, right? And it's just going to go ahead and it's just going to enter in that command. And it's going to spit out the output to you. So it's so incredibly simple. But now we want to do things a little bit more complex. What I want to do is I want this script to not only give me the output that I'm looking for, but then I want the next thing to happen is I want to automate actually automatically configuring the IP address or the networking info. So let's go ahead and we'll go back in here. And now I'm going to add some spacing, and we're going to comment out, and I'm going to say configure primary network interface. Okay, so now I'm going to add some sub comments, right? Because now what I'm going to run into is that I have different subsections here within this script. So I'm just going to say prompt for IP address. Okay, so now we're going to actually build our script to actually start asking us IP address information. The first thing I'm going to do is say read -p. Now what this is going to do is this is going to read the output, but it's also going to prompt me. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually creating a variable that is going to be, it's going to be an input variable. So this is something you could use for anything really. What the script is going to do is it's going to ask me a question, and then whatever I enter in is going to be it's going to be captured as a variable. So I'm going to put quotes in here, and I'm going to say enter IP address, and I'm going to say quote, I forgot the name of the symbol. You'll have to, it was a colon, I think. I just had a brain fart. Anyway, sometimes I'm bad at typing and talking at the same time. So yes, it's a colon, and then we're going to enter in the variable, right? So enter IP address, and this is the IP address. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask, okay, well, what's the next thing that I may want to ask? Well, the subnet mask, right? So I'm going to say enter subnet mask. We'll do the colon. We'll enter that with a quote, and now I'm going to type subnet _ mask. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually adding these as variables. So what's going to happen is the system's going to say, okay, read whatever the answer to the prompt is. So the prompt is enter the IP address, and then I'm going to enter the IP address, but it's going to be captured as this variable. So when I go and use these variables later on, it'll all make sense. So we're going to say read -p. The last thing that I want is the default gateway. So we're going to say enter. We'll leave the DNS servers off for now. Enter default gateway. Did I spell that right? Yes. Okay, and we'll enter that, and I'm just going to say gateway. Okay, so now we have 3 different variables: the IP address, the subnet mask, and the gateway. And now what we want to do is we're going to add again another section, right? So we're going to say get primary interface. Now here's where things are going to get a little bit interesting, and the reason why is because we don't really know what the current interface is, right? Like, you know from looking at it that it's ENS 192, but the script doesn't know that, which means we would have to manually enter that. But but then you'd also have to have the same interface ID on every single Linux machine, right? So even though we're automating this, we're kind of limiting ourselves at the same time, because if you have ENS 193 or, Ethernet 0, I'm just making that up, your script isn't going to work. What you want the script to do is automatically figure out what your primary network interface does. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable. I'm going to say interface equals, and then I'm going to enter in the $sign. And what essentially this would mean is that I'm creating a variable called interface. And that interface variable is going to equal whatever comes after this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter a specific command in order to decide what this interface variable is going to be. And what's interesting is that you're actually already familiar with the command. I'm going to say nmcli device status. Now, if you remember before, when we ran this above in the script, it listed the existing network interfaces, of which the very first one was our primary network interface, ENS 192. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tweak this just a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the system to sort through. Now, again, I don't expect you to memorize this, really, if I'm being perfectly honest, because I know that some of this stuff is going to be new to you. Essentially, what I'm doing here is let me actually finish typing the command. So we're going to say $3, we'll say equals connected. And then what I want to do is I'm going to open up this bracket here. I'm going to say print $1, and we'll enter in the semicolon. We'll say exit and close brackets. And that should do it. Okay, so let me just explain what I did. I know that you're looking at me like, what? I have no idea what you just did. Okay, if you go back and if on your system you look at the device status, you'll notice that there are certain columns. So what I'm doing is I'm using the awk command. I call it awk. Some people say AWK, whatever works for you. I'm using this particular switch in my command to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and output the device status. But what I want you to sort that output and look for the third column specifically for connected interfaces. And if you find connected interfaces, what I want you to do is I want you to print the very first one and only the first one. And I want you to snag whatever that ID is. And then I want you to exit. So in here, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling this awk command, this is what I want you to do. I want you to look for the connected interfaces in the third column. I want you to print the very first interface, and the system will make that interface equal to whatever this variable is. So I hope that makes sense. Again, I don't expect you to memorize this, and this is one of the things I was talking about before. This is the basics of bash scripting. I learn new things like this every day as I'm doing this. I'll go to chat and say, hey, I need some help with this, or I need a script that does this. And it comes out with functions that I've never read or even heard about before. And it's cool to just learn what they do. So, I know that you're not going to memorize all this stuff, but just understand it, okay? Now, the last thing that I need to do is I need to actually configure. Oops, I want to do one more space there because I want things to be consistent. I have OCD when it comes to scripting. Configure primary interface. We'll just say interface. We'll keep things consistent. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to configure the interface. Now, if you were in my last video, if you were actually paying attention to the networking with Linux video, we used the nmcli command and we said connection modify. So now what we're going to do, though, is instead of just typing out the full command, because, if you were doing this by hand, you would say nmcli connection modify, your interface, in our case, it would be ENS192 followed by IPv4, address, blah, 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 blah. You'd go through this entire, thing of doing this. Here, we're not going to do this. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to enter in a command that uses our variable so that we don't have to do anything. Right? So we're going to say connection modify. We're going to put in our variable and we're going to say, I forgot the quotes. We're going to say interface and quotes. Now, what this does now is you'll notice how this changes to yellow, right? This interface here, interface, I spelt it wrong. So let's go back here. Oh, I'm using my mouse pointer like I'm in Windows here. Hang on a second. I spelt this wrong. There we go. Interface. Another big thing, guys, when you're doing scripting, sometimes you're going to have these typos and you got to make sure that you catch them. So interface, okay, so now we're going to type in the variable. We're going to say interface. We're going to say IPv4.method. because this is going to be manual, right? Now what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, this is going to be a manual IP address, and so I need to go ahead and enter manual. Now that I've entered manual, the next thing I'm going to do is IPv4.address, and this is where things get kind of cool, because now I'm going to use these variables up here that I've already created. So just imagine in your mind how this is working, right? This is saying, okay, read this prompt, enter the IP address, enter the gateway, enter the mask, rather, with dyslexia. Then I want you to output your current network interfaces, the primary network interfaces, grab the first one in that list that's primary, because the first one's going to be primary. And then I want you to use this command to modify that address, make it a manual address, and then I want to go ahead and enter in the particular information for my variable. So I'm going to say quote, and I'm going to use the $sign. I'm going to say IPv4_address. And just like I would in the regular syntax, I would say, your IPv4 address followed by your / your subnet mask. Then I'm going to do IPv4.gateway. Now, by the way, this is just something that I know because I've done this so many times. Let's do gateway here. This is just something that I know because I've done it so many times to where, I know that it's IPv4.gateway. If you forget, it's okay. Just close out of the file and go back and look at the command, or go Google it really quick on another screen, and you're done. So what does this say? So this says, okay, I want you to import the interface that's above, whatever the primary is, in our case ENS 192. We're going to change the IPv4 method to manual. We're going to change the IPv4 address to what our variable is up here, that address, followed by that subnet mask, right? So that's pretty straightforward. And then we're going to change the IPv4 gateway to whatever gateway we enter down here. So all of that, again, is very, very straightforward. So now we're down here. Now what we want to do, the very last thing we want to do, is we want to actually reset the network interface. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say bring up / reset network interface. Or you know what, we'll say primary, because we've done primary this entire time, so we'll make sure that, again, that's consistent. By the way, if you're going back to fix something, so you arrow all the way over to here and you hit the end key on your keyboard, it'll bring you all the way to the end. So just a little syntax, a little syntax trick. So we're going to say connection up, and I'm going to put in my variable. So I'm going to say $ interface end quotes. So let's read through this. Enter the prompts. So first we're going to have all of our output so that we can verify whether this is something we want to do. Then we're going to enter in this criteria here. If that's good, then we're going to pull in whatever the active interface is. Then we're going to go ahead and modify this interface here. Whatever the output is there, it's going to automatically be populated here. Change it to manual, change our IPv4 address and gateway, and then we're going to reset the interface. And that's done. The last thing we're going to do is say echo. Let's echo one more time, and we're going to say network configured. Done. Okay, so we have a pretty cool script here, guys. Let's see if this works. Like, I'm excited. Let's just go here, and I'm going to say network.sh. Wow, look at this, guys. This is just, this is so cool. I love this stuff. What's cool is that we put in all that work, and all it's asking for is an IP address, but it's still kind of cool. So we have all of our output. We're validating, yes, good, cool. All of that's good. So let's go ahead, let's create something. So let's say that our IP address is going to be 10.99.9.24. By the way, I already have another CentOS box that is .24. So this is probably going to create some IP conflicts, but that's okay. Who cares? Let's go ahead and enter in our subnet mask. Let's go ahead and enter in our gateway. Let's hit enter. What happened here? Oh, sorry. Whoops, my bad. So that's my fault. I forgot. See, everybody makes mistakes. I forgot in Linux, you can't use the full subnet mask like that. It's got to be your CIDR, like, it's a 24, it's a 32 or whatever. So let's just do this again. That's totally my fault. So we'll say 24.24. This is, again, in Linux. Normally you would interpret this like this. Let me just show you. You would normally do it like this, but in our case here, because of the script, we're just going to do .24. And the reason is because if you remember our script, we put the / in there already. So we'll say enter, and let's enter in our default gateway, and let's hit enter. Okay, kick this out. If I go back here, right, if I go back to our terminal, let's wake it up. Let's wake it up. Let's close this. Let's cancel out. Let's go back in here and look at it. Say IPv4. You see that we're manual now. And you can see that the IP address that we've configured is .24. So we've completely changed the IP address all by a scripted method. Now I'm going to set this back only because, unfortunately, if I don't set it back, it's going to have an issue. So what I'll do here is I'll come over here to activities, and I'm going to say, let's bring up a terminal. We'll say nmcli connection up, and we'll say ENS 192. So we'll go ahead and reset that connection, and we'll come back over here and just check it out. So, whoops, hit the mouse. DHCP. So now we're set back normally. If we really want to, we can go ahead and restart this session. So let's just say, there we go. So now we're back. And if I say if config, we should be set back to .25, which is what we were before. But we can do it again if we want to, right? So this is, again, guys, you know, I've been talking to you guys for 25 minutes. I mean, bash scripting, I could talk about this forever. I'm going to leave this here. I really hope that this script will help you guys. I mean, honestly, this is something that you guys can use as you're deploying your Linux operating systems. This is a script, honestly, you could just use in your regular production day. But I hope it helped. I hope it taught you guys the basics, and rock on, man. I really hope that you guys will take this video and become, you know, scripting Yodas. So you guys enjoy your day. I'll see you guys in the next one.